What we do here is go back.
I love you. I know. How's it going, guys? And welcome to episode 46 of the Lost Media podcast. Yes, it is May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. I actually am not a huge Star Wars fan, which makes me very qualified actually to do a video talking about lost Star Wars media. Look, I believe that it is important for people to cover Star Wars bits of media who didn't actually follow Star Wars. Because the people who are obsessed with Star Wars, I know you're watching this right now. You guys are obsessed, man. You guys are very into Star Wars. And I know it's a very important day for all of us. So we just got to sit back and listen to a guy who is very unfamiliar with Star Wars to cover all of this stuff. This is so stupid. I'm looking at some pieces of Star Wars Lost Media today that I deemed very interesting from the Lost Media Wiki. I'm going to go through all of them. They're right in front of me. I should mention that I've only seen the first 3 Star Wars movies and the last 3. I never saw the prequels. And I have not seen any of the new Disney Plus shows. I was never really a big Star Wars fan growing up. But I am interested in the lost pieces of Star Wars, and I did play a lot of the Star Wars games. I played Lego Star Wars demo for the Xbox 360, where you're just in that town with the This is so bad. You'll never find a more wretched place of scum and villainy. Just looking out onto the Star Wars community. No, you guys are awesome. The Star Wars fans are great. I've watched a lot of Star Wars fan videos of them reacting to different trailers being released. And let me tell you, I've lost a few years off my life covering these things. They've not been good. Which is why I've decided to look at all sorts of pieces of lost media from Star Wars today on the Lost Media podcast. I'm getting up all my notes in front of me, and we're going through every single piece of lost media. All of them, guys. Every single one we're going through today. The first one is Star Wars, a partially lost cut of a space opera film. The movie Star Wars, retroactively titled Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope, is renowned for many of its groundbreaking feats in cinema, among them the quick and engaging editing style. However, there was a lost version of the film which had a much different pacing to it. The Lost Cut, it's better known as, and it's an early work from a British film editor named John Jimpson. And this is allegedly a space opera version of the show. On the Star Wars Behind the Magic CD-ROM, some of the footage of the movie was found in bonus features. These snippets, along with some of the images, have been uploaded to the Star Wars Holiday Special website. Another aspect of Star Wars Lost Media is the Star Wars Holiday Special, because that was lost for many years. I just remembered. And that was obviously found courtesy of the internet, thanks to the internet. But before that, it was just this completely forgotten about thing. And there's pictures on this Lost Media wiki page to do with it. But there's no original cut of the edit. Another piece of Star Wars Lost Media that is really hard to find is the original 1977 film. I'm just going through these as I go through this because I've just remembered that the 1977 4K, I think it was the 4K project that someone made, where they're trying to restore the original film that was released in cinemas in 1977, because that is almost impossible for people to get their hands on now and just watch and sit down and watch, because there's been all sorts of updates, all sorts of Disney-fied, re-altered versions of it, and it's basically non-existent everywhere, which has driven me insane personally, because the only time I want to sit down and watch Star Wars, the only time I want to sit down and watch Star Wars is when I'm watching the original 1977 version. I want to see what that was like for the people who saw the show. I'm just getting up alternate notes here so I can play them on the screen behind me. Yeah, why would I want to watch Star Wars, guys, when it's not Star Wars? You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. I'm just going to read out a bit of the background to this. In early 1977, after all Star Wars footage had been recorded, George Lucas asked editor John Jimson to design a rough cut of the film so that he could have an idea of the final product. The version was completed in only a few days of work. The work print was stored on 13 black and white 35mm reels and contained 30 to 40% of different scenes than the final version of the film. Wow. It also lacked music, sound effect, and special effects as they were not finished. That's a lot to read out in a short amount of time. After watching the film, George Lucas decided he didn't like the direction that the editor had taken the film in. He soon after scrapped his version and fired him, typical George Lucas, to later edit the film with his own crew. The tapes with the label of the Star Wars are still stored in the LucasArts archive. Only a few people, among them Dr. David West Reynolds, a Star Wars author and archaeologist for Star Wars, has seen this version of the film. He wrote an article in issue 41 of Star Wars Insider in which he described it as a documentary-like movie and missing scenes. Wow. He also mentioned it had longer takes and some different scenes from the final version. It's unlikely this version will ever see a public release due to the unfinished form. This is really bizarre. I'm looking at that gives a lot more context to this screenshot because that is a screenshot I do not remember from the film. A picture of the cantina scene in the Lost Cut. That's the first time I've ever had a tongue twister of saying that word instead of cut. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave that in the podcast or not. That's hilarious, guys. Did he just say that? Did he really just say that word? Yeah, wow. That's when I was expecting to see all these pieces of Star Wars Lost Media, I was not expecting to talk about something like that. It's an actual version of the original Star Wars movie that is quite considerably different to what we're used to. It's amazing. It reminds me of Eric Stoltz Back to the Future. It's probably a similar watch experience watching that original version. Probably won't ever be released because it's a Star Wars thing. Another aspect of Star Wars Lost Media that I've found is Star Wars 1313. It's a lost build of an unreleased Star Wars action-adventure third-person shooter. It was planned to be a third-person shooter that was being developed by LucasArts. This game would have been an unorthodox installment in the Star Wars video game series as it sought to take a darker and grittier approach to the story. Announced at E3 in 2012, Star Wars 1313 would have had players play as bounty hunters as they navigate the level 1313 on Coruscant and planned to be darker in tone compared to other Star Wars games. The game would also serve as a backstory for the Boba Fett. With LucasArts being acquired by Disney, development on Star Wars 1313 was ceased. Wow. Its background, as the advent of the 8th generation of consoles neared, and with games such as The Last of Us hitting store shelves, developers knew that they needed to create a more immersive and detailed games. With LucasArts having games that had mixed to negative reception with being released, they knew that they needed to try something different to prove they were capable of competing. Star Wars 1313 was first announced on June 1st, 2012 during a segment on the television show Game Trailers TV with Jeff Keighley. Oh no. While only a short demo was shown, more about Star Wars 1313 was going to be revealed at E3 in the same year. A demo and trailer both were showcased at E3 in 2012. During E3, it was revealed that Star Wars 1313 was a collaborative effort between LucasArts and Lucasfilm motion picture capture technology, and it was being used during the development of the game. Though everything in the trailer was not final and the characters were just test characters. No official plot was ever revealed. Former developers who worked on the game have confirmed that the game was about Boba Fett as a young adult and would serve as a backstory for the character of Boba Fett. Nothing beyond that has ever been revealed. With gameplay that has been shown, players would control a bounty hunter and they navigated the 13th level on the planet Coruscant. Players would take a third-person perspective when firing at enemies. Developer Jonathan Cooper, who worked on Star Wars 1313, has since revealed that there would be a droid assistant to move objects throughout the level. This game, guys, would be shithouse to play now. It was made in 2012. Yeah, this would be no good now. This would be a dead set shocker. I'm sorry, I don't think it would be any good. but you know, it people would still love to play it, obviously. I mean, who wouldn't? But on October 30th, 2012, Disney purchased Lucasfilm and all subsidiaries, of course, and initially LucasArts assured fans that the acquisition would not affect the development of the game. Fucking lies. Later, it was revealed that Star Wars 1313 was put on hold in 2012, and on April 3rd, 2013, Disney announced that, hey, we own Star Wars now. We're fucking shutting down LucasArts and giving the rights to develop any future Star Wars games with EA. Wow. Dogs. It's never been released. The game was nowhere near complete, and assets have been. So, yeah, they just gave up on it, essentially. That's it. Nothing else to do with this, which is a shame, I think. I think when you're working on a project, obviously, so heavily, and then you just straight up give up on it, yeah, that is a huge shame. Another aspect of Star Wars Lost Media that I thought was really interesting and worth talking about was that there was an original Rise of Skywalker lost J.J. Abrams cut of the sci-fi sequel film. Its existence is unconfirmed, but if this ever gets found or released, and it's actually significantly better than the Rise of Skywalker, because J.J. Abrams is actually quite a good filmmaker in my opinion, that would be hilarious, because it would just show how fucking delusional Disney corporates are and how much they ruin the whole movies of Star Wars. Because if JJ actually edited this in a way where it was nowhere near as bad, despite the obvious plot points of Palpatine coming back and just that stupid shit, I would be very fascinated to have a look at that. As a non-Star Wars fan even, I would definitely, because I paid to go watch that in the cinemas and I wanted my money back. But, you know, that's all right. That's okay, you know. We forgive and we forget on the Lost Media podcast. That's just what we do. You know, that's okay. It's fine. You know, I don't need to see Star Wars, guys. I don't need to see this. It's all right. Yeah. Fucking giant waste of money watching that movie in the cinemas. Star Wars Battlefront 3 is another piece of lost Star Wars media. It was a build of the cancelled Star Wars third-person shooter between 2006 and 2012. I'm going to read out the cancellation of this. I'm not going to go through a lot of this because, my God, it is extensive. If you guys want to see this, I'm going to include the Lost Media wiki page in the description. It's completely lost. I remember playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 when I was a kid, so damn. Sorry if that noise was included in the audio. My God. It's very hard with the podcast to just keep going without making any noises. There have been multiple leaks throughout the years, the first one being modeled renders inside developer Richard Smith's portfolio after being laid off from Radical Design. In 2009, a phone recording of an internal trailer appeared on IGN, only to be taken down soon after because of LucasArts' requests. A build of the game was leaked on 4chan and Reddit in January 2016. The build requires an Xbox development kit and has been confirmed to be 8 months older than the final build of the game. In addition, it is a very early part of the game to Xbox 360. I've made so many noises in my mouth. Sorry about that, guys. Meaning that there are multiple frame rate issues and bugs. Yeah, so there's literally no point this even being found because it's just the same as Star Wars 1313, 1313. It's unfinished. Completely unfinished. Lost Star Wars games, in my opinion, are different. Lost games of any kind are different because it's only worth finding if the game is finished and then unreleased from being completely finished. And most of the time, it's obviously an unfinished game, so there's no point of even watching it. Yeah, there's just it's a pointless thing. But if you guys want to go have a look at that, there's a lot of detail about the cancellation, development. It's too much. Too much for me to read out in the Lost Media podcast. And it's also another game, a Lost Media game. I found Star Wars 1313 to be a bit more interesting because it was cancelled due to Disney's acquisition of Star Wars, which is fascinating. We've got another one here that I wanted to definitely look at is Star Wars Detours. And it's a partially found unreleased CGI animated series between 2012 and 2013 the development was made. And it was a planned computer animated story that would have been set in the Star Wars universe, obviously. The series set between episode 3 and episode 4 was going to be a satire about the Star Wars franchise as a whole, showcasing the characters' daily lives in a comedic light. 39 episodes were completed, but the series was postponed indefinitely before any were released. Wow. The series was first announced at Star Wars: A Celebration in 2012. Writers from Robot Chicken, Family Guy, The Venture Bros, Pinky and the Brain, The Regular Show, and SpongeBob SquarePants were confirmed to be involved. The show would have been directed by Todd Grimes, who had directed shows such as Planet Sheen, and I love Planet Sheen, and Back in the Barnyard. Oh my god. During the show's presentation, during its panel at Star Wars Celebration 6, fans were initially enthusiastic about the show. No release date or planned network was announced, but it was speculated by IGN that Star Wars Detours would release sometime in 2013. On October 30th, 2012, Disney and George Lucas was announced that they had reached a deal. It's another one for Disney to acquire Star Wars, and on March 11, 2018, the official Star Wars website issued a statement that the series release had been postponed until further notice. I feel like every single important piece of Star Wars lost media was lost because of fucking Disney acquiring Star Wars. Fans who are watching this or listening to this on your podcast platform, YouTube, I am now I now see your pain. As a non-Star Wars fan, I now realize I didn't realize before how frustrating this would be, but now I realize two important pieces of Star Wars, potentially really good pieces of the show, were released. There is actually interest. On June 30th, 2021, the series co-creator Seth Green, gotta love Seth Green, said in an interview for Entertainment Weekly that the series was shelved, citing the reasoning behind the episodes were 10 years old and there wasn't much interest in releasing it to Disney+. What is so amazing about this is it has been completely finished. This show was completely finished. But in November 2020, a full short from the series titled Dog Day Afternoon, which I'll try and feature in the back here, behind me, was leaked online by the Internet Archive user Sketch the Cow. It was soon taken down, but it's since been re-uploaded by numerous other individuals. Wow. So guys, I voiced my anger for partially found and lost and found being the only three categories in the Lost Media Wiki. Partially found does not mean one short from 39 episodes in countless hours. Partially found means half the show. I don't understand why they put partially found when only a tiny little clip of a mostly complete series has been found. It really grinds my gears. Lost Media Wiki, fix your shit, please. Those three categories, I hope my videos can help in some way with stopping that from being a thing, because it is driving me nuts at this point. Honestly, it actually does really annoy me how they're the only categories. Yeah, it's bullshit. Pisses me off. Yeah, that's one of the worst in my opinion. That is very interesting. The last one I'm going to look at though is the Star Wars Lost original Luke Starkiller scene of the space opera film. Again, this is a scene that people have heard about, and that's why it's got its own page. In the finished film, upon finding Princess Leia in her cell on the Death Star, actor Mark Hamill gives his character's full name for the first time, announcing that, "I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm here to rescue you." According to Hamill, however, the script for the scene had him identify himself as Luke Starkiller. Lucas apparently changed the surname to Skywalker immediately on hearing the line spoken, as he disapproved of the negative connotations around Starkiller since Hamill was portraying the hero. So there is a take that exists somewhere, which I'm sure will never be released, of Luke walking into the cell and going, "I'm Luke Starkiller, I'm here to rescue you." Wow. That is awful. Oh my god. Wow, that's hilarious. It has not resurfaced since, obviously. Look, there might not have even been takes. He might have just heard him practicing for the scene in rehearsals. Do they do a lot of rehearsals for a film like Star Wars? I don't know. And then they didn't even film it, and they just heard him reading out his lines on a table read. That's right. On a table read, that's rehearsals. And he's like, nah, rewrite. Skywalker, yeah, that'll do. Rest is history. That's hilarious. Again, I'm going to include this page in particular in the description because there's a lot of background on this. This episode will go way over time if I keep talking about that. I think I've covered all bases of like the most important pieces of Star Wars Lost Media, especially that show that was cancelled because of Disney's acquisition of Star Wars, and that game, of course. I think the show that I covered just before that one is probably the most interesting piece in my opinion. Thank you guys for watching. May the 4th be with you, I guess. Live long and prosper. No, I'm not going to be a dickhead. Thanks again. I've got more podcasts coming soon, of course. I'm trying to make as many as possible for now. It's eventually going to become 1 a day. There's 2 a day just so I can get started on this and give myself a good chance of getting the subs up, getting the views up. Please subscribe. Please, guys, like the video and check out my other podcast that I'm a co-host on, the On We Talk podcast. That is featured in the end screen of this video and in the description. It's in both. So yes, check that out. It is awesome. It's a very hilarious podcast. I guarantee you will have a few laughs at least, even if it's not your sense of humor. But if it is your sense of humor, you'll laugh your ass off. Yes, that's it. Thank you guys. The end. Goodbye.